Hello everyone, welcome to the lecture of pathology. And today's topic of discussion is nephrotic syndrome. We'll cover this topic in two parts. This is the first part of nephrotic syndrome. This disease of nephrotic syndrome is associated with certain disorders of kidney, and in particularly speaking, kidney is having a functional unit of nephron. So somewhere there are some defects in the structure of nephron which allows the presentation of nephrotic syndrome. We also need to analyze that what nephrotic syndrome looks like, and first of all we'll see into the definition of nephrotic syndrome. So it is a clinical complex characterized by a number of renal and extrarenal features, that is, features associated with kidney, and due to which we get presentation of other symptoms which are not a part of the kidney, but systematically we can find in the other parts of body. And they are enumerated as follows. There is a condition where there is proteinuria. Proteinuria is a condition where we find protein in urine, but it's not any amount of protein in urine. It should be approximately 3.5, 3 to 3.5 or more than that per 24 hour of urine collected. We should find this much or more than this, that is 3 to 3.5 or more than this quantity of protein in urine. As there would be a loss of protein in urine, it's obvious that the total circulating albumin, which is a protein of course, in the blood would reduce. So that would lead into hypoalbuminemia. Associated with edema, as hypoalbuminemia will cause change in the osmotic pressure of the blood, and that leads into edema. Hypertension, hyperlipidemia, lipid urea, and hypercoagulability are certain features associated with nephrotic syndrome. So what we find here is that nephrotic syndrome is not just a single symptom presented, but it is a collection of many other things like proteinuria, hypoalbuminemia, edema, hyperlipidemia. So these all constitute the nephrotic syndrome. So it's actually a syndrome associated with a variety of symptoms and diseases. So it's called a syndrome. Now, understanding the classification of nephrotic syndrome, it is quite easy to understand that it can be of a primary and a secondary type, where the primary type is associated when the disease is located to the kidney, that is the secondary is associated with any other systemic disease which you have indirect or indirect impact on kidney. The primary causes, or what are the varieties, or what where we find nephrotic syndrome as a primary disease, where there is a minimal change in nephropathy. It's obviously associated with the nephrons or the pathies or the diseases of nephrons. So, there is a minimal change. We don't find a prominent change in the nephron. And the first reason that we find for nephrotic syndrome is this. Then we have focal glomerulosclerosis, membranous nephropathy, mesangial proliferative glomerulonephritis, and rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis. Now, about the secondary causes, obviously, as we discussed, that secondary causes won't be associated with kidney. So the primary one is diabetes mellitus. The first one to be mentioned, because diabetes mellitus do have a complication of nephropathy associated. Lupus erythematosus, mild doses and paraproteinemias, viral infections like hepatitis B and diphtheria, also HIV and preeclampsia can also cause presentation of nephrotic syndrome. Comparing about the age incidences, we have a statistical data that nephrotic syndrome do affect children 15 times more than any other age group. In most cases, children are due to minimal change disease, that is, minimal change nephropathy. When we have seen that the primary classification of disease, we have seen the primary cause, or the first cause is the minimal change nephropathy. In adults, the most common cause is membranous glomerulonephritis, mm, and also focal segment glomerulosclerosis can also be seen as a cause. Diabetic nephropathy is emerging as a major cause of nephrotic syndrome, which stands out to be the secondary cause of the disease. Now, in discussing about the pathogenesis, first of all, we need to understand about the function of nephron. So we have already seen this function in the physiological process. Um, in physiology, we have seen how the ultrafiltration and selective reabsorption and secretion do occur in the different parts of the nephron. And what we see here that the glomerulus is made up of Bowman's capsule and internephron arteriole where the ultrafiltration occurs. And as we are talking of proteinuria, and there is a defective filtration, so obviously the part affected is the glomerulus. Also, we have seen into the tubular structure also that due to in the presenting structure, the tubules or the collecting tubules, ascending loop of Henle, descending tubules, all of these structures do not have any role in the absorption or secretion of protein. So once they enter into the tubules, that is the protein enter into the tubules, they are destined to come out in the urine only. So there is some defect in the filtration part, that is the glomerulus part. So how does a normal glomerulus looks like and what is the intact structure of it? It is somewhat like this. When what we see is that different layers are involved. This is different layers of cell presenting the Bowman's capsule can be seen here. And as you can see here, there is the parietal epithelium might be present, visceral epithelium is present, and capillary lumen can be seen, parietal epithelium, fenestration in epithelium. These fenestration do help in the filtration process. So this is the normal structure. There is some defect that occurs in this normal structure, but leads into nephrotic syndrome. Now, to understand the pathophysiology of proteinuria and why is the protein appearing in urine, in a healthy individual, less than 0.1% of the plasma albumin may transverse the glomerular filtration barrier. So, in a healthy individual, also, only a small part of albumin can cross this barrier. Uh, so, usually it is a very minimal finding, or you don't find protein in urine. The glomerular capillaries are lined by a fenestrated endothelium that sits on the glomerular basement membrane. So as you can see the GBM written here, that is glomerular basement membrane, which in turn is covered by glomerular epithelium or podocyte, which envelop the capillary with cellular extension called foot processes. And you can see these foot processes here. I will just mark the cursor there. These are the foot processes you can see. In between the foot processes are the filtration slits. So these are the filtration slits. You can see the arrows are being made. These three structures are the glomerular filtration barrier. So, and the endothelium cell, the basement membrane, and the porocyte together will form the filtration barrier. The glomerular structural change that may cause proteinuria are damage to the endothelial surface, the glomerular basement membrane or the podocyte. Glomerular hemodynamics can alter glomerular permeability. Selectivity of proteinuria, as you can see, excretion of relatively low molecular weight protein is known as selective proteinuria, while in excretion is predominantly high molecular weight protein. It is a non-selective proteinuria. So selective proteinuria means where we are selecting the type of protein that needs to be excreted, whereas non-selective where the high density or high molecular weight proteinuria protein would be excreted. It is also related to relative damage of glomerular filtration. Hypoalbuminemia, it is due to both proteinuria and due to increase in the renal catabolism. what we find is that there is a reduced quantity of albumin in the circulating blood. In fact, hepatic albumin synthesis is increased from this 145 plus minus 9 milligram per kg per day to around 213 plus minus 17 milligram per kg per day in nephrotic patient. So, although there is an increase in the synthesis, but the loss is comparatively greater. So, that leads into hypoalbuminemia. So, we know that the liver is involved in the synthesis of albumin. But as there is an increased loss of protein, this compensation do not cope up with the actual amount of loss also. Now, how does the edema develop? As we can see, we had proteinuria, and due to the proteinuria, there was a reduced quantity of albumin, which will in turn reduce the oncotic pressure of blood, which leads into edema. Now, due to this edema, as we know, edema is due to deposition of fluid in the interstitial spaces. There will be a reduced amount of blood flowing, and that would lead into renin-angiotensin, PDA, that is antidiuretic hormone secretion. That leads into retention of water into the body, and that retention also adds into edema. Now, what happens to the metabolic consequences of proteinuria? The metabolic consequence of nephrotic syndrome include the following: that there would be an increase incidences seen as there is a loss of protein into the urine. So we find increased incidences of infection as it lowers your immune system. Hyperlipidemia and atherosclerosis might also be seen because hyperlipidemia is a risk factor associated with atherosclerosis. Also, hyperlipidemia is due to increased production of lipids by the liver. Hypocalcemia and bone abnormalities are also seen. Hypercognitivity and hypovolemia conditions are also observed. So these all can be related to the altered metabolic rate occurring into the organ, into the liver. Proposed explanation of infection, that how does the infection occurs, why do we get so much of infection. So if there is a loss of protein which are immunoglobulins in the urine, that might also lead to reduced immunity. Edema fluid acting as a culture medium, as you know, edema would develop and this would act as a culture medium, and there is a protein deficiency, so the overall immune stress of the person falls down. Decreased bactericidal activity of leukocyte and immunosuppressive therapy given along. Urinary loss of complement factor that opsonizes certain bacteria. That is, these complement factors are actually proteinaceous in nature. So again, opsonization of certain bacteria, that is like making them recognizable and easy target for the immune system is opsonization. So this Properdine factor B is an example of the complement factor. This might also be uh, excreted in the urine, and that could lead to lower immune status. Also, we have an explanation of for the hyperlipidemia. Also, we have discussed that like the liver might synthesize more. So, due to increased hepatic lipoprotein synthesis, that is triggered by reduced oncotic pressure, there is also a defective lipid catabolism, which also has an important role. Low density lipoprotein and cholesterol are increased in majority of the patient, where low density lipoprotein and triglyceride tend to rise in patients with severe disease. It increases the relative risk of myocardial infarction 5.5-fold and pulmonary death for around 2.8-fold. It also increases the progression of renal disease. Hypercognitivity, multifactorial in origin, increase in urinary loss of antithrombin B, altered level and activity of protein, CNS, hyperfibrinogenemia due to increased hepatic synthesis, impaired fibrinolysis due to decreased plasminogen, increased platelet aggregation, relative immobility, concentration from hypovolemia, and hyperlipidemia, alteration in endothelial function. These all are maybe the contributing factor in hypercalcemia. And why do hypocalcemia do occur? Hypocalcemia is common in nephrotic syndrome, but rather than being a true hypocalcemia, it is usually caused by low serum albumin level. So technically, it's not the calcium loss. It's that you have some association with the albumin, so a net quantity of albumin is reducing. That gives a clinical picture of hypocalcemia. Nonetheless, low bone density and abnormal bone histology is reported and associated with nephrotic syndrome. This is could be caused by urinary loss of vitamin D binding protein, with consequent hypovitaminosis D. As a result, reduced intestinal calcium absorption. So, this is the reason for hypovolemia. Hypovolemia occurs when the hypoalbuminemia decreases the plasma oncotic pressure, resulting loss of plasma water into the interstitium and causing a decrease in the circulating blood volume. This is quite obvious. Hypovolemia is generally observed only when the patient's serum albumin level is less than 1.5 gram per deciliter. Hypotension is a late feature. We'll discuss about the functional consequences of urinary loss of plasma protein in the second part, and also other features also. Thank you for listening.